So it is now 3 o'clock on my clock, so we can start. Because it's Sutta again, I'm going to start with the Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Very good. Now I'm going back to the Anapanasati Sutta. You know, the first couple of sutta classes I just mentioned about the first 4 stages of Anapanasati, where you are aware of your breathing, long breath, short breath, it doesn't matter which one. As also as you can be aware of your breath and the full awareness of the breath, and then the calming the breath down. I emphasize that this is an awareness of a body thing. In other words, one is aware of this through the 5th sense base, sense of physical touch. And then we go to the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th stages of Anapanasati, where they even change the word, what you're supposed to not be aware of the breath, but train to experience the piti and the joy. Actually to learn that ability to be able to feel the piti and the sukha, and then feel them as the citta sankhara, this mental object, which is making it very clear that this part of Anapanasati is very much from the sense of the mind. It's the mind which is basically creates and perceives these beautiful joys and pleasures, and then to calm that down. And as you're calming that down, we go on to the next stage of Anapanasati, the 9th stage, which is experiencing the nimitta. It's called the citta in Pali, but here what that citta means is that it's the first time you're seeing basically a pure mind object, which is just the way that you're experiencing, knowing this beautiful mind through the 6th sense of mind. And that's why it does appear similar to the 5 senses, but it is very different. And I gave a few examples of what happens. Sometimes it's not just the nimitta appears to be beautiful, but sometimes it can be very bright indeed. The sort of brightness that would blind you if it was a real light. The sort of colour which does not exist in the realm of sights, but it's more beautiful. It's kind of like, say, yellow, but more yellow than yellow. And that's a good sign. This is not the normal way of seeing sight objects. It's a way of the mind knowing these things. And then once you experience that, then, as it says in the Anapanasati Sutta, you do learn how to abhipamojayang cittang. I prefer the Pali words, and that means to bring more joy, more happiness, more oomph to that nimitta. So it becomes very clear, very powerful, very bright, and at the same time, to samadhahang cittang. The samadhahang, that's that word from samadhi, it's a verb associated with the noun, and it does mean that you keep that nimitta still. So it stops moving. It doesn't go up and down, it stays stable. To say it's concentration, that's one of the other arguments. To me it's kind of obvious that you don't concentrate the nimitta, you let it be still so it doesn't move. And then after a while, it happens naturally by keeping things still and just by basically bringing energy to them, they get extremely bright. And then the last stage of the Anapanasati, the last of the first 12 stages, stage number 12, that is where we're mochiyang chitang, you free the mind. Which always means it's the idiom of entering the jhana. So the first 12 stages of anapanasati is leading you to get to a state where there's no way you can feel the breath. And I mention that because sometimes people think, well, it's breath meditation. And aren't you supposed to be aware of the breath all the way through? No. It's called breath meditation because that's where it starts. And it's eventually you go past the breath. And simile which I've given for so many times, you've heard it before, I am certain, is that it's like when you come here to Jhana Grove. You may come from Hong Kong, you get into an aircraft, you sit in your seats, and you go all the way in the aircraft, all the way to Perth, but you cannot land the aircraft in Serpentine. You have to get out of the aircraft and choose another vehicle. You get like a car, a bus or something, and then you come down to Serpentine, and you through the gate, you go into our car park, and then you can't drive your car into the meditation hall. You park the car or the bus to get out of that, and you put on your shoes and walk. And then you go as far as the shoes can take you, which is to the front of this meditation hall, and then you take off your you take off your feet, shoes. You take off your shoes, and then you come inside. You have a different vehicle for each stage of the journey, because that's the only way you can get inside this hall. And this is the same with meditation. You don't even start with the breath. I always encourage people to start with a bit of body awareness, to be able to relax the body, to bring some peace to it. And once the body is relaxed and peace, then often the breath comes to you. Your mindfulness gets strong enough, and then it's easy to watch the breath. And you use the breath, the physical feeling of the breath for a while, until you can start experiencing the delightful breath, the joyful breath, the piti sukha along with the breath. Then you've moved into using this mind awareness as your vehicle. And then from the mind awareness, just of the joy of the breath, then just the joy itself. Then it's already a pure mind object you're watching. And that allows you to release the mind from the body. I don't mean just leaving the body and floating up in the air. I mean just the physical feelings of the body just fall off the screen, and you're deeper inside and experience just a pure mind object, which is the piti sukha, but now even far greater in its pleasure and its intensity and stability. And that becomes the jhana. And then eventually you come out of the jhana. These things are impermanent, they don't last forever. And so when you do come out of jhana, then what happens? Then we go on to the next 4 stages of anapanasati. When you learn to explore impermanence in breath meditation, when you learn to explore things fading away in breath meditation, when you learn to explore things ceasing in breath meditation, when you learn to explore relinquishing things in breath meditation. On these occasions you are mindful of mind objects, the Dhamma, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose, and mindful. Having seen with wisdom the impermanence, fading away, cessation and relinquishment of the 5 hindrances. That's the first of the Dhammas in the list they say to be aware of. When you see with wisdom the impermanence, fading away, cessation. When you see learn to explore relinquishing things in breath meditation. On these occasions you are mindful of mind objects, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose, and mindful. Having seen with wisdom the impermanence, fading away, cessation and relinquishment Of the 5 hindrances, you are mindful with equanimity. That is why on that occasion you are mindful of mind objects, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. That is how mindfulness of breathing, developed and cultivated, completes the 4 focuses of mindfulness. Now, first of all, know the purpose of this. This is the mindfulness of breathing, especially focused on how it fulfills the 4 focuses of mindfulness, and how the connection between these last 4 exercises, if you wish to call them exercises, explore impermanence, explore fading away, explore ceasing, explore relinquishing in breath meditation. Now, straight away, I hope you notice just a few translations which you do not see in other books. One of those was, instead of you contemplate or you get insight into impermanence and stuff, you explore it. It's a different way of describing this process which gets insight from experiences we've just been through. It's these experiences, you just come out of one of these deep meditations, and to me it's, when people say, oh, should you start contemplating them now? No, you've got no choice. You've just had a huge experience in your life, beautiful, blissful. It's almost impossible. I can't see that people cannot start contemplating. What the heck was that? Even, as they say in Australia, blind Freddy would have to start looking at, and not this Freddy, I mean that's an Australian idiom. You just had one of the most amazing experiences of your life. Of course you're going to think, what the heck was that? That was amazing, that was wonderful. So the insight is just so obvious. In fact, there are some suttas where it says you don't have to think, what was that, why was that, what was impermanence. They're just right in front of you. But anyway, instead of saying to think about or investigate, I kind of prefer the word explore. And the reason I say explore, I'll give you the exercise about what actually the practice of insight really is and how it's done. Well, actually not done, but how it happens. And this was, it wasn't you, somebody else mentioned at lunchtime about going to South Korea. This was not the visit to the demilitarized zone. This was invited to the World Computer Conference. And Freddie, you see me messing around with this machine. How skillful am I? Now be honest, not much. I'm kind of hopeless with computers. And nevertheless, this conference, it was to deliver a keynote address at the 2019, I think it was, World Computer Conference in Daejeon. They gave me business class tickets, a nice 5-star hotel to stay in, and they were so well impressed that they gave a $2,000 donation to monastery for about an hour's work. What they say in London, where I grew up, a nice little earner. But you don't do things for money, that was just a little part of it. And of course, when they saw me at the pre-conference meeting, I got the question from so many people, what are you doing here? You're a monk. Now, do you work for Samsung? Or they don't really have great IT companies in Australia. What are you doing here? And I mentioned that in conferences, in order to innovate, to get insight, to break new ground, you don't have more of the same. I know all of these things I've taught you in the last 4 or 5 days. You can get it from YouTube. You can read it in some of the books. Every joke which I've ever said is online somewhere. And so, why are you here? One of it is because when you have a personal contact, you're actually in the same room. It's not just the information you're getting, it's more than that. You can actually see where the information is coming from and where it's actually leading to. It's much more powerful. So I say, when it gets to exploring things, getting insight, how does that actually work? So I used a water bottle. I had a water bottle when I was there. Now I'm going to use this. What is this I'm holding up? You have to join in here. You have to contribute. What am I holding up? Okay, it's got it. You know it, right. Okay. You don't have to look any further. Is that the meaning of this little exercise? Of course not. You may say stick, and it's just like reminding you of when you're in school or university. Teacher holds up something, and you say stick, right answer, and you don't have to look any further. What else is it? So calling it a stick is not right, it's not wrong, it's just not deep enough. What is it? Come on, you've got eyes, you're educated. What is it? Yeah, what else? Come on, give me more information. What else? Now hopefully, that now you're looking at this, not just looking for an answer, but looking deeper into it. And what does Ajahn Brahm mean? What is it? You keep exploring it. For example, what's its function? What's its use? That's what its use is. Is that the only use it has? When I've done this before, I've given it another use, which is really lovely use. As a monk, you've got all these robes, and sometimes it's nice to give them a bit of a scratch. That's a very innovative use. What else is it used for? And sometimes you can roll things on it. What you're doing is getting insight. You're looking at something, exploring it, and finding uses and purposes which you'd passed over before. You thought it was just a stick to hit the gong with. There's much more to it than that. What about its weight? Its texture, what type of wood, how it all fits together. When you explore it, that's why exploring, you go into places where you've never been before, new territories. When you start exploring things, you start to see things you never expected. You've never been taught. That was, this is a lovely explanation of the question you asked last night. What do you really mean? Never let your learning stand in the way of truth. You've been told this is a gong bonger, a piece of wood. That's your learning. The truth is much deeper than that. You take this, explore it. If you're going to explore this and find out new things in it, you have to have these qualities of not wanting to get a good answer. It's not a test where you get given an A, B, C, D, E, F. Remember what those grades mean? I told you yesterday. What does grade A mean? Arrogant, yeah. Grade F? Fantastic. You're exploring things in different ways. So it's not that type of test, it's what you find out for yourself. You explore it and you go beyond your learning and see new things. That's why if you're in business, innovation means not listening to some TED talk by somebody else, but sitting down there and you have a sort of problem to solve and then you go into it. Explore it. Find new angles from it, new places you haven't seen before. And then eventually you give the TED talk. You don't listen, you give it. So this is exploring these things. So let's have an example of that from this text. To explore impermanence, anicca. How many of you know what anicca means? Wow, you're that dumb? Actually, you're not. If someone had put their hand up and said impermanence, I said no. It's much deeper than that. That's why many people they think they're practicing satipatthana, they think they're getting insight, they're not seeing it deeply enough. Anicca is much more profound than impermanence, much deeper than that. Where I started getting interested in these words, exploring it, challenging it, going it deeper than anyone has told you before. And where I got interested in the word anicca was because as a young monk, many of our young Western monks, you were supposed to be learning the monks' rules and the nuns' rules, but we weren't taking that exploration into those rules deep enough. We'd assume too much, anicca, impermanence, because it doesn't mean that. There was these words, anicca and nicca, like the opposite. And nicca was a word used in the Vinaya very often. And it was used for things like the monks' meals. Many of you haven't been to Bodhinyana on this retreat, or just today maybe for the cave tour. But we have people who come the same day every week, just once a week. For example, today, Wednesday, Doi came and her daughter, Dom, Thai ladies, and Zach, he was there today. And you can almost tell the day of the week. Oh, Zach's here today, it must be a Wednesday. Sam's here today, it must be a Tuesday. And because they offer what is called nicca food, a regular supply of food. Their day is, say Zach's is Wednesday. And every now and again, they come on a different day of the week. And it kind of confuses me. And I say, I thought it was Wednesday today, Zach, and you're here on Friday. And he said, oh, because he was going off overseas, so he has to come this day instead of that day. But that is what's called a regular supply. Nicca food. Nicca. And that gives you an understanding that impermanence, the opposite of nicca, is not just things coming and going. Something which was always regular and now is no longer regular. Something which was always there and now it's gone. Now you may understand why I've often told people, you've had some of these really deep meditations and they're powerful, they're amazing. Please enjoy what happened, but don't just reflect upon it and say what was there. See if you can contemplate what was missing, something which was not there, which is always there. Things which are always there, you just can't notice them that easily. When they vanish, oh my goodness, that shouldn't have disappeared, but it does. That really stands out. One example of that, which I told you, I believe, was that time when I went to visit a Zen monastery when I was a layperson. I had no idea what the Zen meditation was about. I was exploring, not just Theravada breath meditation, but other types of meditation as well. And the instructions I was given, sit down, face the wall, keep your eyes open. That was it. Not much of instruction. But I liked it because it meant I didn't know what I was doing, so I didn't suspect or expect anything. So I was just looking at the wall. with my eyes open. And I did mention it worked very easily for me because I had done enough other meditation, and things like breath or loving kindness before. And so when I watched this wall, at least my mind was not fantasizing or thinking. I wasn't superposing on what I was looking at, all those fantasies and thoughts. And instead I was just looking and my mind was quite still. And of course that's when the wall vanished. I mean, this is walls vanishing. What are you talking about, Ajahn Brahm? It's like you're looking at a table here, the computer on it. You're looking, your eyes are open, you're not doing anything, and then the whole thing vanishes. I mean, that is like weird. Many people would freak out. They think they're going crazy. But it was just a simple thing like a wall. I knew it was still there, but it was the sense of sight had turned off. Sight was there, and now what was there, what should have been there, is now gone. So anicca does not mean like you're watching a movie on the computer. And of course, a movie, it comes and goes. You've got different characters come in, the different scenes. Yeah, that's not impermanence. Even if the program stops and another program comes on, that's not impermanence. But then sometimes you're watching that and then the whole screen turns off. That's not impermanence. You're looking at that and then the whole computer disappears. That's not in the insurance scheme. It's not supposed to happen. What the heck's going on? You're looking at a real computer and then suddenly it vanishes. Now that is anicca. Some part of that experience which should be stable, continual, reliable, and the whole thing goes, vanishes. That's huge insights. So that's one of the reasons why I introduced that simile of the tadpole and the frog. When the frog jumps out of the water in the lake for the first time, sitting on dry land, it notices that something is missing. It hasn't just come and gone. It's totally gone for a while. Water has vanished. And if you can somehow kind of try to understand what that would mean for a frog, it would be so frightening. The place where it's always grown up and lived, all its friends were, and dry land is now taken over, and the water is gone. Of course, you can go back again afterwards. You don't have to be that afraid. But the anicca things which should be there are now not there. And that's where it gets really interesting. This is where real insight comes, which blows you away. There's like one of the meditator's disciples, he was a clinical psychologist, and he once told me, he said, Ajahn Brahm, if you want to get any enlightenment experiences, it's not just an interesting new way of looking at things, it's like a big kick up the backside of powerful insight. Changes the way you look at things. So, what happens when, even in a first jhana, what's missing in a first jhana? What's anicca? Your body and the five senses. Inside the jhanas, they're just not there. They haven't vanished from existence. They haven't been exterminated, annihilated. So when you come out of meditation, there's just a pile of ashes in front of you. There's nothing scary like that. All it is, they're just, you transcended them for a while. And so they're not visible, they're not, can't be felt, smelt, tasted, heard, or whatever. And when that happens, you've been very aware, actually more aware than usual, way more aware than usual. Your awareness is greater. You haven't vanished or become unconscious. You're more conscious than usual. But what you're experiencing now is just where the body is gone for a while. And then you actually can know what the body is once it's disappeared. If it's always been there, you think you know the body, you think you know the five senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. But this is the problem, we think we know, but we don't. If we really know, we could let them go so easily. And also, afterwards, this is common. Not everybody gets this, but a lot of people do. At least you have the opportunity to understand this insight. Once you have the understanding of these five senses and what they are, your relationship to them, when you see that how they can be let go of, how can they anicca, how can they cease, the result of that is your attachment to them is nowhere near as strong again as it was before. You've been apart from them. And actually you're more peaceful, happy, feel more free. Many years ago, always trying to make up similes, I made up the simile of the human being who's, he's grown up inside a prison. And he's in his prison cell. He's a very good prisoner. He did all of his studies, and so he often gets upgraded to even a better prison cell. And now he's done so well in his life so far inside prison. He's got this lovely cell with nice big rooms in it. It's almost like a suite, even an upstairs, and a little garden in the back. And he's met another nice little prisoner from the female wing, and they've got married, and they're sharing their big cell together. And they've had some children as well. So they've got a little family in their prison cell. And they feel very content and happy with what they've got. They had to do some work inside the prison, but it's quite good work and helpful work, and they get a good salary. They even save up some money if anything goes wrong, and they're living a nice little life. But then one day, she was cleaning up in the back of their big prison cell, and they find there's a secret compartment under the floor. And she goes inside that secret compartment, and she finds there's a tunnel in there. And that tunnel was built by another prisoner many years ago, 25 centuries ago, called Zach, surname Yamuni. And so she explores. And they've left some wonderful instructions on how to successfully get to the other end of the tunnel. 8 instructions. First of all, right view. I mean, you've got to sort of, have some directions, otherwise you get lost in that tunnel. And number 2, why are you in that tunnel in the first place? Because it can drive you mad. So it's out of letting go, kindness, gentleness. You can't go too harsh through that tunnel, otherwise it might cave in. So you have to have the right motivation. And you also have to be very careful not to talk too loud. Otherwise the guards will actually sense there's somebody down there trying to escape and they come and arrest you. You have to have right speech, even right action. You can't hit the stones too hard, otherwise again they will know there's there. And the right livelihood. And then you also have to have the right renunciation. I don't call it right effort, but right renunciation. So that you can let go of all the bad things which create noise and get you caught. And then you have to be really mindful. There's hardly any light down there. So you've got to be very, very aware of what you're doing. And lastly, there comes a stage right at the end of the tunnel where you have to be so still. If you're not still, you can't get through the last stage of the tunnel, the Eightfold Path. And when you get to the last stage of the tunnel, you're out of jail, temporarily. You're free. The liberations, the jhanas. And they realize just what this Sakyamuni actually did. And now you know, just all those years you thought you were free, but you were in tunnel. And you also realize just the prison officer who actually controlled you, you thought you were free, but you were under their control. His name is Will. Will the prison officer. Volition. And once you start to see that, because you're there, you've gone there, wow, it changes the whole way you look at life. And eventually, you have to go back, but later on, you go through there, you never come back into prison ever again. Get done with this human body. But Ajahn Brahm, what's wrong with this human body? If you've never been out of jail, you never know. So anyway, that's a little simile. Not perfect, but when you see what's missing, then you can understand what it really is. So you see, that's what impermanence, or anicca, really means. Something which was there is no longer there. And you feel so much more free, liberated, and have more understanding. So, what else can be anicca? The next one is more scary, but really powerful and wonderful. The next thing which disappears when maybe you experience the first jhana and then you go deeper into it. And it becomes a second jhana. What is the characteristic of the second jhana? That is where something else vanishes. You know what they call the joy of the second jhana? They call it samadhija piti sukha, the bliss born of stillness. Samadhi, not of concentration, the bliss born of stillness. Something's gone. Your will. This will, like the prison officer, always telling you what to do. You think, oh, come on, you can do better than this. Come on. You've got other things to do in life. You've got to look after your kids. Now, why not, instead of just being still and doing nothing, why not do some work and make some money and give it to some good cause? We know we should not be just being still all the time. There's other things we should be doing in life. That will, what comes behind your thoughts, actions, fantasies, dreams, plans, what pushes that along. And so if you do, you will do, have the good fortune or the experience of having been in a second jhana, you look back upon that, what's the difference between that second jhana and the first jhana? In the second jhana you can't move. It's just like you have a computer in front of you, but there's no mouse, there's no buttons on the console, so you can't press anything, you just can't do anything. There's that ability to do, to choose, to stop. It's just not there. What's always been there has now vanished. It's anicca. Your sense of will, doing, choice, initiating actions of body, speech or mind, it's not there. It's gone. And of course, that is, again, weird. Now I should add here, in case you get a tiny bit confused, within the jhana itself, all you have is the data. You only work out what it means that it's anicca after you emerge from those jhanas. They're so intense, so deep, so powerful, that they are, for want of a better word, and I really mean this, for want of a better word, I've never found a better word in English except trauma, but only positive trauma. If you've had any intense experience in your life, like you thought you were dying, fall off a cliff, or you had a heart attack or struck by lightning or whatever it is, if it's intense trauma, you can never forget it. Your mindfulness becomes so incredibly strong. It leaves a memory there which you can access so easily, sometimes involuntarily access that memory. It's strong. It is unforgettable. And that's what happens after these deep meditations. The deeper the meditation, the more powerful that imprint of that memory in your mind. So while you're actually in, say, a second jhana, of course you can't think, you can't do anything. You're like beautifully frozen, having the, I keep on saying the same word, the time of your lives. I always want to up the description. It's huge, really beautiful, but then you can't do anything. It's like you're gorgeously frozen. And then because of the karmic causes for that state, eventually wear out, and then the experience starts to fade. And you come out of it, and after you come out of it, wow, when you can exercise will and think again, wow, that was amazing. What was it? And that is where you contemplate these things. After the meditation, inside the meditation you basically can't do anything. You're actually frozen, beautifully, happily so. And it's not a waste of time, because that leaves a residue. It's, what you do is called Paccavekkhana. They have Pali words for it, I don't make this up. And this is where you reflect upon that. You don't really need willpower to reflect upon it, because it's so powerful, it's so there. And so you see that something was missing. That thing which is called will is totally gone. And what does that do to you? What that does to you, it means from now on you were there without any will, very alive, very aware, very blissed out, very happy. You weren't sort of dull, very powerful. And it means that you realize that that will cannot be part of you. You can exist without it. You understand this thing we call will, choice, is not you. Not me, not mine, not a self, as the Buddha kept saying. And it's your own experience. It's not what you work out logically. It's not what you do exercises on other people for to find out. It's obvious. And it's also the case that your mind is strong simply because the 5 hindrances, the first 5th hindrance of doubt is also gone. This is something you just cannot deny. Now you understand what the power of anicca is. It's not just like the waves on top of an ocean, going up and going down, going up and going down. That is just a superficial understanding of anicca. Anicca means just sitting by the ocean. You don't just see waves going up and down, you see the whole blooming ocean vanish. And it's not there anymore. And I say that as a scientist, that's not supposed to happen. That doesn't go according to any rule of physics. But it's right in front of you, you're not going crazy or mad. Most meditators who get deep have those experiences. And that's what anicca is. So now you can understand the other parts of anapanasati. When you learn to explore impermanence in breath meditation, when you learn to explore things fading away in breath meditation, that word is viraga. Sometimes people translate it as dispassion. I haven't really seen a justification for that, but you can certainly understand how you know that the meaning here is things were there and they're beginning to fade, disappear. What happens after things fade away and disappear? You learn to explore things ceasing in breath meditation. This word of cessation. When they cease, a lot of times they cease temporarily for a few days. Then what does it feel like? Remember that monk Sudamo I talked about in Indonesia? His 5 senses ceased, for about 7 or 8 days. I love telling this story as well, just to show these are not just single stories. There was a Vietnamese Theravada monk over in Sydney who was teaching a meditation retreat. Not like this one. It's more like the ones we do for our BSWA. You come on a Friday afternoon, you check in, and then about 7:30 all do a meditation together, and then at 8 o'clock you give the introductory talk. And so they'd already had the talk from the management of the retreat centre, this is what's going to happen, and all of that business part of it. And then the monk came in and they sat meditation together for half an hour. But after half an hour, the monk never rang the gong. He just carried on meditating. And actually, I don't know how many years ago was this, I think it was about 10 or 15 years ago or something. After about half an hour, instead of ringing the gong, the monk just carried on meditating there, perfectly still. Another an hour, he should have started to talk half an hour ago. But he didn't. He just carried on sitting there quietly, meditating. What would you do? What the people in the room did, they didn't want to touch the monk. I mean, that was just almost like touching a Buddha statue, which you shouldn't do. And then so instead, they all went to bed. They left him there, in the room, sitting. When they got up in the morning, for the morning meditation, he was still there. He hadn't moved. So they meditated. And then when it came time for breakfast, they went to breakfast. He just kept sitting there. He never had any breakfast for 8 days. No lunch, no drink, nothing. Didn't go to the toilet, didn't speak. He just sat there. And afterwards, I'm not honest here, I can't say who he is. I know the monk to ask if you want to find out who it was, but I'm not going to tell you. Because you don't want people just being tested all the time. In other words, if this monk did anything like that, he'd be taken away to a university and be tested. What happens? They put all these machines on him. It's okay, now please stop everything and just go into one of these states, because there's many PhDs to be got from that type of research. Do you mind being a PhD subject? One of the people I remember reading about, this was when I was in the Psychic Research Society. No, you're a scientist. A real scientist doesn't want to just explore ordinary things which challenge what you know. So this particular man, I still recall some of the things he got up to, was this evangelical Southern Baptist called Edgar Cayce. Have you heard of this man, Edgar Cayce, C-A-Y-C-E? A very simple man. And he was born, so everyone in that area were Southern Baptist Christians, and so that's what he was. But he could get into these trances. They're very benevolent. And when he was in the trance, he wasn't aware of his body at all. But then you could speak to him. And his particular gift was you can ask him if you were sick. Or, my mum is really sick with a cancer. Anything we can do? And in the trance, this Edgar Cayce would suggest some medicines. This was actually over in United States, I think in Virginia, sorry? Atlantic City. And that was between the First World War and the Second World War. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, good, thank you. And they'd ask him, so, have you got some medication? He would prescribe some medication, but either not usually used for that particular illness, or in dosages which were ridiculous. But anyway, they tried that because a patient was about to die, and it cured the patients. He had an amazing success rate. And the story which I always like, I was trying to find it the other day, but I couldn't actually find out which particular page of the book it was on, but I still remember it very clearly. There was one woman who was very, very sick. I don't know what the illness was, but anyway, they put this Edgar Casey into a trance, and he said, oh yes, this is the medicine she needs. Give her this and she'll be cured. And in those days, they didn't have pharmacies. They had drugstores, they were called. So they went to the local drugstore, and the people in the drugstore said, I've never heard of it, this type of medicine. So they put him in trance again. And he said, not in Atlantic City, he said, this medicine you will find in the major drugstore in St. Louis. And they can't sort of telephone or send a text message. They had to send a telegram. So they went to the telegraph office, sent a telegram to this drugstore, and after 20 minutes, half an hour, the message came back, never heard of it. So they put him in trance a third time. And he said, it's there in the back room to the right, third shelf on the left, just around the back there. And so they sent that message to the drugstore in St. Louis. Another half an hour, they got the message, found it. I love things like that, because you can see it makes it kind of real. But it's also, he was fascinating because he became very famous, so famous that many of the doctors in New York City wanted to prove that he was a fraud. This is not scientific. It can't happen. You can't cure patients this way. So what they did, they went to see him with his permission. When he went into trance, they put slivers of wood between his nails and his flesh, like what they used to do to torture people. And of course he never even winced. He could not feel any pain while he was in trance. And the doctors who witnessed that were convinced this was for real. But then when he came out of his trance, then he felt it. His hands were incredibly sore. But then those 2 or 3 doctors who'd done that investigation, they went back to New York and said, this is for real. And then the other doctors in New York said, no, it can't be for real. So they had to go and do the same torture on this poor fellow. I think he did it 2 or 3 times until after a while he decided, no more. Because everybody didn't believe it could be possible. So they doubted the people who actually saw that. Is that about right? Sorry? I didn't read that. I didn't read that one in particular. No, I remember reading that part, and that kind of scares you. Well, not scares in the sense of fear, but trepidation. If you get somebody who is having some sort of amazing experiences, a lot of people would, you do it in front of the cameras and stuff, and then they still won't be convinced. They think it was just fake information. It was concocted. So anyhow, this was one of the reasons why, if you do have these experiences, please don't tell everybody. Otherwise you'll be a little pincushion, for people trying to prove you're wrong. Anyway, the exploring things fading away in breath meditation. You see things like the will fading away and then stopping. You see the not just the will. You know that part of Buddhism is teaching non-self. You see what you call the knower. Consciousnesses fading away. And one of the reasons why, again, these jhanas are really important is because when you get into the first jhana, does consciousness all stop? 5 consciousnesses stop, relating to the 5 senses. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. That's why if someone's in a jhana and you touch them, they can't feel it. If you shout at them in the ear hole, you can't hear it. And it's one of the reasons why that during that jhana, all you can experience is the 6th consciousness, the mind. But what happens? Now you have clear, pure experience of what mind consciousness is, as different to the other 5 consciousnesses. The way the Buddha taught it, he said, just like you were a person refining gold. If you want to know what the qualities of gold are, you have to refine it, purify it from all the other impurities in it, like some lead or some tin or whatever. And once it's just pure 100% gold, nothing else but gold, then the gold can exhibit its qualities. It's usually soft and malleable if it's pure gold, and all the other qualities it has. If there's any impurities to it, it becomes an alloy or whatever, and it doesn't retain the same qualities. If you want to know what the citta is, that 6th sense of mind, it has to be purified before you can even really understand it. The only way to complete that 3rd satipatthana, the 3rd focus of mindfulness, which is the citta, to know what the citta really is, you can't do it without jhana. You have to have experience. Pure mind, nothing else. And that's one of the reasons why, to explore things fading away, ceasing, and what's left afterwards. And that's where you find incredible things. Insights, real insights, your own insights. Of just like how powerful it can feel afterwards. And some of the insights you have about ordinary things, how trustworthy they are. And, because, you do experiment, you're called to visit people and do weird things to with people, especially in people really suffering like cancers. It's amazing just how powerful that mind can be with people really suffering in a thing like cancer, and how healing can happen. The power of the mind is immense, but it's also, you realize, I already mentioned that a person within the jhana, they just, their body on the outside can't really die. How come that happens? You have an understanding about the relationship of this thing which you call the mind and your body. And just how just that mind can recall what it was like in previous lives. Okay, no, I can't stop. This is one of the gentlemen here, and actually not in this retreat, but he started investigating using hypnotherapy to regress people into their past lives. And he got all these amazing sort of weird stories So if you know how we get reborn and what we do. And this was a young lady, was about 16, and she was anorexic. She was in Sydney. And she was so sick that psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, specialists, they could not help her. She was getting so thin, she was dying at only 16. So her mother just was thinking, who knows, it might work. It's not that expensive to get a hypnotherapist to regress her. Maybe find out some reason from her previous life. Because she was young, only 16, her mother had to be with her during the regression. So imagine just this young lady, this young girl was on a couch being hypnotized, and her mother was just sitting on a chair watching everything. And she was an easy candidate to take into deep hypnosis. And that's when she started telling about her previous life. Don't have to believe yet, was this a real previous life or wasn't it? You'll soon see why. And then she started relating in her previous life, she remembered that she was the younger sister of, basically her older sister. There were two sisters living together, quite a few years ago. She was the younger of the two sisters. They both fell in love with the same guy. And because her elder sister was more attractive and a bit older, the man chose her elder sister and married the elder sister. And the younger sister was so heartbroken, suffering so much, that she committed suicide, killed herself. She said, that was me in my past life. And I committed suicide. I fell in love with this guy. My sister fell in love with him as well. And he chose her, not me. That's why she was trying so hard, extremely hard, to be beautiful. Because not being what she thought was not beautiful, she blamed on the pain which caused her to kill herself. You can kind of understand that, the emotional reason. But the interesting part of the story was while this was being told to the hypnotist, the mother was going hysterical. And sometimes when I hear the tale of what this mother was doing, that you really felt for that hypnotist. He had a patient on the table he was mostly responsible for, but he also had this woman who was also going crazy as well, like two in the same room. What am I going to do? So he managed to, calm the young woman down, and then she was asking the mother, why are you screaming and acting in such an extreme way? And that was when the mother said, I was that sister. I never ever told my daughter that I had a sister. She had an aunt who committed suicide. We were ashamed of it. And everything she said, I can relate to. Her aunt, me, fell in love with this guy, and my sister killed herself. And so, we married and started a family, and that's her, our daughter. She wanted to be close to that guy. She couldn't marry him, because I married him, but at least she could be his daughter. And that's the weird ways that rebirth happens. I thought it was kind of plausible. And certainly those people understood it. And once they see what's going on, the reason for it, then of course there's always solutions. That's one of the things with hypnotherapy, even if you don't believe it. Once you get a memory of the past like that, then the problem starts to unravel and solve. So anyway, this is what happens once you learn to explore things ceasing in breath meditation, then relinquishing things in breath meditation. Relinquishing things is letting them go. Relinquishing is actually not throwing things away. It's just inclining towards a more simplicity. People often might tell you, why do you give that up? Why don't you watch TV anymore? Why don't you go to the football anymore? It's not something you say, I relinquish it because I'm a good Buddhist. You won't see me, a Buddhist, in a football match. That's not why. It's just you incline away from those things. They don't interest you anymore. It's relinquishing. And that becomes the fourth tetrad, the 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th stages of Anapanasati. As you've probably read them before, but I've gone over them in way more detail. And I still haven't finished yet the Anapanasati Sutta. We have to extend this retreat, I reckon. But that's the heart of what I wanted to say. Now we go to the next part of this Anapanasati Sutta. The 4 focuses of mindfulness complete the 7 enlightenment factors. You can see we're going on now to the insight, and from the insight we go to what the insight does. Liberates you, frees you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay? Are there any questions on what I've just been saying? Okay, great. Then there's always the pieces of paper to write the questions on this evening. Is that okay? Oh, there was a question, was there? Okay, one question, yeah?
Can I ask Ajahn about the ceasing of the breath?
Yeah.
Probably what I experienced is beautiful what Ajahn
Yeah.
described. But when I meditate, so the breath sometimes disappear.
Yeah.
And then only like this. So I have nothing to anchor my attention to.
Ah, yes. I remember.
And then sometimes the heartbeat. So what should I do?
Okay. Is when the breath starts to disappear, before it disappears, see if you can train yourself to see the delight in the breath. That's actually what the Buddha was saying over here. When you learn to experience joy as you breathe in and out, when you learn to experience pleasure as you breathe in and out, that becomes a training. It's a strange thing that, I don't know, for me it's, okay, when I meditate, it's so easy to see the breath, which is really nice. It really lifts me up. And I was tired this morning. I don't know if you noticed, my energy levels. But when I woke up this morning at 2:30, I don't sleep much at night. And, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Am I going to fall asleep during the meditation and start snoring? But instead, you did some meditation, and this morning's meditation, it was just gorgeous. You feel lots of energy, and that sort of gets you going. And I've learned how to do that over 55 years of meditation, 50 years as a monk. And so that has so many wonderful benefits. When I say, oh, it's just so nice. The people, sometimes ask me, Brahm, what pleasure do you have? You don't have a family, you don't watch the TV, you don't go to the beach to hang out, you don't go on holidays. That's my meditation. Just leave me alone in my cave. How many of you saw that cave today? Oh wow, great. You know that sometimes if I go over to Hong Kong or Jakarta, you kind of miss that cave. In that cave, it's much better than a 5-star hotel. It's just quiet, peaceful. and it's the right temperature, nothing to worry about. No one can knock at the door, disturb you. Any bushfire will never affect you. And even if Kim Jong-un tests out a missile and it hits my cave, I'll be safe in there. So if you find a missile attack in the next few days, don't worry about it, just run over to my cave, you know where it is now, and hide in there. Okay, it's just an exaggeration, but nevertheless, it's just that beauty, and if you can learn to experience that, just right now, can you feel the sense of peace and happiness in your own body, physical feeling? I can actually feel that in my body. I'm a 72-year-old man, almost 73. You can still feel this wonderful sense of relaxation in your own body. Feels good. Then close the eyes, and soon that body will vanish, and that bliss will go off into the piti sukha of the mind. And that's what I watch. So the best disappears is something even nicer to watch. So learn how to notice what that is. When you notice what that is, then when the breath goes, see if you can notice that and make that your meditation object. Okie dokie. Okay. Oh, you got it. Okay, go on.
I want a minute to share the intense feeling I have for my walking meditation.
Go on.
I'm a beginner. It's my third time doing it today. And after the morning lecture, I remember one very key word, relax.
Yeah.
Then I relax. Then when I'm walking, I have that feeling that I'm on very soft green glasses. And the next minute, I'm up there, and then I feel very happy and very joyful, and I feel my eyes all tearing, the tears all come down, and that minute of very free make me very happy, and then I found my saliva coming down too. Then I have to sort of stop. Then I found my heart beating very fast. And that intense feeling lasts for quite a while. Then I quickly go to the restroom to share with my roommate. And that feeling still stays. I normally sleep, after morning session. I just cannot sleep. And until later on I sort of get myself turned down, then I'll be able to rest. So just how you mentioned intense. Yes, it's very intense. It's my first time getting this feeling.
It won't be the last. So well done. Excellent. Okay, so now we'll go to the interviews. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Again. Well done.